Julie Naclei, and this is a video on the 8th house in astrology, which is the house of sex, death, and other people's money. And this is such an exciting house because it is similar to the 8 ball in pool. It's the color black, and it's where it doesn't operate by the same rules as any of the other houses. It's basically a portal through which things enter and exit our lives from other places. So on a mundane level, it is about opening up to other people, being interdependent with other people so that they change our lives. Like, for example, we can be interdependent with them through sex, and intertwined with them through sex, right? We can be intertwined with them at a psychological level where they have a profound impact on our life because we are so intimate with them psychologically. It could be financially, or in terms of resources. They have a profound impact on our life because they funnel resources into our life that allows totally new things to happen that could never have happened otherwise. You know, like so many people who really changed the world, like they did it because there was someone funneling them resources that allowed them to do the type of work they were doing. And so those people funneling resources really changed their life. So it's about opening up to allowing other people to have that impact on us. But at the same time, that also puts us at risk from other people, right? Because they can dump us, they can hurt us, they can manipulate us, they could use their money to control us or take all our money away. And all of these things also happen through the 8th house. It's like the 8th house is a very, it's like the sort of house where you make a deal with the devil and then it causes your life to change for the better, but one day the devil shows back up and then there will be a price to pay. But that price might still be worth it, right? Because ultimately, we all die anyway, so there's not necessarily a reason to avoid doing something in life just because there will be side effects. We'll get back to that. On the supernatural level, this house is also where we open up to, I like to call it occult forces, but it's basically where we open up to supernatural things impacting our life. Like, and this doesn't have to be a demon or something like that. It can be God. If you have this sort of relationship with God where you pray and then God takes direct action in your life, then that's the 8th house, right? If you're just like having a conversation and he's inspiring you, that's the 7th house. If he's like a philosophical model that you look up to, that's the 9th house. But when God is like coming in and like throwing frogs at your enemies and drowning them in the sea and like blowing up your car to force you to get a new job, that's 8th house stuff. The more open a person keeps their 8th house, the more supernatural forces have a direct impact on their life. And so allowing supernatural forces to have a direct impact on your life and then doing things like having sex or allowing people to have a financial impact on your life, those things are all really connected because it's about how open you are allowing the sphincter to be and how much you want to trade one scoop of control for an added scoop of power. So it's like really the choice we're making in the 8th house is how much do we value having control over our lives versus how much are we willing to relinquish control in order to gain more power, more intensity, and more magic. And it's really a trade-off because if you see someone who keeps the sphincter really tight, you know, it's like people were like, they have a stick up their ass. It's like they want to be in control of their life. So that gives their life a sort of limited quality, right? There'll be a sort of sameness to it because they're only moving forward by their own efforts. They're mostly only being impacted by their own self. And so it can become a little bit like kind of boring, you know, like giving yourself a massage. Ooh, that feels good. But it doesn't feel that great, honestly, because I don't know why. It just, when we're entirely in control, things lose a bit of their magic and intensity for whatever reason. But, you know, if you see someone whose sphincter is entirely open, then you'll tend to see someone whose life is like overly dramatic. You know, like they're like rise up, then they like fall down, and money, they're rich, then they're poor, then they're, it's like total chaos. They have 16 wives, they have a drug addiction, but they're really successful, you know, because they have a lot of power, but at the same time, there's so many external forces coming in that they're kind of spinning out of control. So I guess the goal with this house is to learn how to allow other forces to come in, whether it's other people, other people's money, other people's sexual energy, or supernatural forces, allowing those things to come in while also either being able to maintain some degree of control or being able to somehow ride the waves so that we don't like completely spin out of control and, you know, just die of a crack overdose or whatever. And honestly, I couldn't give anyone advice on how to do that because that's not my thing. I'm the sort of person who likes to watch other people's 8th houses while being, you know, in a little glass box where I'm safe. But I can say this, that if you are the sort of person who you feel like you're on the sea and there's no currents and there's no winds in your life and there's really like not enough power, then you would be someone who needs to open up your 8th house. And some ways you can do this are, one, by incorporating the color black into your life, and also not being so afraid of 8th house things, right? Like not being so afraid, like, you know, you could spend time in a graveyard, right? Or watch horror movies, or have sex with people without a condom. I don't know if you should go that far, but you know, taking more risks, being, I don't know, put a pinnacle on your wall, like not being so afraid of things just because they're called a cult. It's like when you open up a little bit to all those things which are black, you know, like opening up to other people, opening up to scary things like death and ghost, opening up to, let's see, I said sex, death, the occult, the color black, you know, like taking risk, really, you know, like being willing to take a risk for more gain, for more potential gain, that's kind of like the essence of opening up your 8th house sphincter, which is why, although I've never, you know, like summoned demons myself, but I like the word the occult, and I sort of admire people who do that, because they're like, I'm willing to let this power into my life, right, to see what happens. I'm not somebody who thinks that is like evil or associated with, I just think it's like, it's risky behavior. Same thing with being a slut. It's like, I sort of admire sluts, right, because I don't think it's bad to be a slut, but it's risky, right? And I sort of admire those people who are like, I'm going to take a risk and see what happens, you know? Even though I haven't really been that sort of person myself, but it's sort of admirable. Or, you know, even doing drugs, it's the same thing. It's like, I'm going to take a risk in order to potentially have some experience that will transform me, you know? And in order to open up your 8th house, you need to be less risk averse, but also you need to be more okay with side effects, because everything in the 8th house has side effects. Like when God is coming in the Old Testament, people are getting killed, you know, frozen blood flying everywhere. It's like there's side effects, and that is what the 8th house is like. But just because there's side effects doesn't mean you have to be like, oh no, side effects. You know, it's like life ends in death, so there's not like some reason to be hugely afraid of chaos or of things getting messy, you know? It's like the more you're like okay with things getting messy, the more your 8th house starts to open up. So if you are someone who tends to keep their 8th house really restricted, and it just really restricts your growth in life, then those are the sorts of things you want to consider. You want to be more comfortable with side effects. You want to be more comfortable with making a mess. You know, if everything gets really chaotic and it gets out of control, is that really the end of the world? You know, it's like my life's gotten completely out of control in the past year and a half or whatever, but it's like, in a way, is like the best thing to happen, and it can be that way for you too. It's like you don't necessarily have to be afraid of chaos and messiness and things getting out of control, or even ending in ruin, you know? It's like, if, you know what I mean? If you get blown up, you know, like, so what? You know, it's like, you'll survive. So that's like how you need to adjust your thinking a little bit if your 8th house is too sealed up, and so it doesn't allow all that magic, romance, power, and intensity that you could have in your life. But if you're, you know, because it's like people who, you know, or it's also like that can relate to wanting to be too in control of your money, because what is the point of wanting to be too in control of your money when you just die and then that money sits in a bank account? You know what I mean? It's like, when you keep death in mind, I think that's really like one main way of being more willing to take risk, because it's like, what am I really, there's no safety anyway, so why am I really avoiding all potential magic and power and pleasure to preserve something that I can't even preserve to begin with? And if you're, let's say your 8th house is too open to where you're completely out of control, then that's, you know, like, so that's like sometimes when people find Jesus and then they like swear off drugs, they swear off like sex, or at least being promiscuous, they stop gambling, stop smoking crack or whatever. It's like, those are the people who have to tighten up their 8th house a little bit to gain more control, which I've never really been that type of person, so I can't relate to it as much. But anyway, those are just some things to think about in the 8th house. And yeah, so I don't know what else to say. Have fun, have an adventure. Fortune favors the bold. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And please let me know how it goes. Thank you. Bye.